Okay, so today I will be talking about my EdTech resource review, and what I'm going to be focusing on is participation in virtual classrooms, specifically for socioeconomically disadvantaged students. My name's Andrew Kroll, and let's get into it. Okay, just to introduce the topic, the article I focused on was from Emelina Monero, and it's titled 8 Strategies to Improve Participation in Your Virtual Classroom. What I loved about this article is Monero really was able to break down some of the positives, even talked about some of the downsides of virtual classrooms, but the main focus was how to improve it. So the EdTech topic was tools to aid participation in virtual classrooms. That's what this whole presentation is about. So what I said is virtual classrooms lead to difficulties in student participation, especially with those who are socioeconomically disadvantaged. We're going to get into that later, and we're going to focus on that marginalized group in a slide later. Why I chose this article? Class participation is always greater in person, and I really want to break down why and how to improve it. Because I see a common thing, even extroverted students will tend to not participate in online classrooms more. I'm a little bit of an extroverted student. I participate in person and online, but a lot of people just do not participate online and they're not focused in Zoom meetings. So another reason I chose this article is because I use Zoom meetings all the time for groups projects, classes, team meetings, everything. And being able to see greater participation and enjoyment is important. Okay, so we're just going to dive into a little article overview. So this is going to be part 1. We're going to do a little segment on all 8 ways to improve online learning that Monero discussed. Okay, the first one is spider web discussions. And this concept is all about constant engagement, back and forth, and discussion in the classroom. Okay, these are discussions that revolve around constant engagement from all students, not just 2 or 3 students raising their hand while the teacher's lecturing. We want constant discussion rather than just the teacher lecturing and the student answering. So this article focused on Google Meet being a great tool for this, and I agree. I've used things like Google Meet, Zoom, WebEx. All these tools are excellent for online classrooms. And really, those 3 have been the main focus of all online classrooms since the COVID-19 pandemic. One thing that Google Meet does great is their interactive tools. Things like the chat, they could do reactions, they could raise their hand, similar to Zoom. Like I just mentioned, the second point is using chat. Google Chat and Zoom Chat were both used. These are excellent EdTech tools where students can respond and interact with each other and the professor using emojis and reactions. And just as importantly, they can answer questions from educators. Because this is a more common thing in online classrooms. You'll have a professor ask a question and there'll be complete silence in a Zoom class. Whereas in person, typically a professor asks a question, at least one person's going to raise their hand. The third point that Monero talked about was flipping the classroom. In this section, educators used a mix of Zoom and synchronous tools along with asynchronous class to allow students to lead discussion rather than consistent educator instruction. I recently answered a discussion post talking about flipping the classroom, and the concept of it is students are going to take home a lot of the lecturing, a lot of the information gathering, but when they come to the classroom at time, especially in synchronous settings, they're going to come ready to engage and discuss what they learned, rather than a more common system, especially in college, where a professor is lecturing for 80 minutes, and that's the whole class. That's it. The fourth point that Monero talked about was the think, pair, share concept on Zoom. This revolved around using both Zoom and Google Classroom and Canvas to administer group projects where students are given more flexibility to do their own experiments and research, which can lead to more autonomy and more discussion and engagement. That's a big thing we're focusing on when we're trying to get more participation, is more discussion and more engagement. Because participation isn't just someone raising their hand when the teacher asks a question. We want discussions between students. We want back and forth where students feel comfortable asking teacher questions, and teachers can then ask questions to students to enhance their learning. And all this is important in the think, pair, share concept. All right, the next 4 points of the article, the fifth one is changing show and tell. So show and tell is something we all did as elementary school, preschool, stuff like that. So show and tell was changed to think, write, and share in this concept, where students led a presentation and were asked to answer questions. This led to discussion and a unique way to break the ice. This is something you see a lot in first classes of the semester, where teachers will do icebreakers and stuff like that. So this concept I love, especially early on in the semester where students are trying to get to know each other, especially at new schools. The next is online forums. In this specific example, they use Nearpod Collaborate. This is an EdTech tool that has a virtual collaboration board, can lead online forums that keep students engaged. Another tool they use is Flipgrid. Both these tools are more focused on creating kind of collaboration boards, bulletin boards, similar to the way we use discussion posts in this course, where students are going to post something and other students are going to reply with questions, feedback, whatever. These tools, along with Google Classroom, are used to create forums to have students answer questions. The next tool is virtual gallery walks. This is a tool where students post their presentations online and have to respond to others' presentation, leading to great group conversations. This is something I haven't experienced in my time at school, but it seems like a great idea. A lot of times you'll have students post their papers or a discussion post, but posting a presentation is a different concept, rather than the common answer where students are going to come in and nervously give their presentation and then no one's going to give any response to it. And the eighth tool is brainstorming online. This is pretty simple. In this case, they use Google Docs. They let students view classmates' work and ask questions and give feedback. Very similar to a discussion board or etc. Okay, so the learning theory represented that I focused on was social constructivism. This is all about how people learn and the idea that learning is best when it is shared. As you see in a lot of the concepts that Monero focused on in this article, we're focused on engagement and discussion, and this is very important for social constructivism. Things like spiderweb discussion, online forums, differentiated versions of brainstorming, these are very key for social constructivism. And the tools talked about like Nearpod, Google Meet, Google Classroom, Flipgrid, Zoom, Canvas, anything. These are essential for social learning, which is key. Here's a quote from the article that Monero wrote. Quote, many educators found that asynchronous discussions were more equitable because they opened up participation to students with low bandwidth, who had schedule limitations, or who were uncomfortable engaging with the full class, end quote. This is a great quote because it really shows, students who might not want to participate and might not feel energized to participate, but opening up discussions may make them come around to it more, even if they're low energy. We're going to talk about this too with the marginalized group. Here it is, the socioeconomically challenged. This is people who face disadvantages because they have limited economic and social resources, whether it's at home, they live in poverty, or may be forced to work constantly to help pay bills. This adversely affects learning because they lack social experience. They often become introverted, or they lack energy in the classroom, what we just talked about, and they can experience lots of stress in their environment. An unstable household and dining situation. This can negatively affect focus, sleep, concentration, all that. Along with this, is simply put, they could have less access to textbooks and technology that other students have. Benefits from this article, the tons of excellent forms of social learning. So we just talked about students with low bandwidth. This is going to be common with socioeconomically challenged because they may not have the best living situation. They may be working all day to where they're coming to class tired. And online learning can be a place where people will be naturally introverted, but this article helps highlight opportunities to promote participation and engagement. Potential challenges for the socioeconomically challenged, living in a noisy and difficult environment. This especially hurts in asynchronous settings or Zoom settings in virtual classrooms because no one wants to put their mic on if they have roommates or parents screaming in the background. No one wants that. This group leads to children being introverted, which can be difficult to overcome, even with excellent EdTech tools like the ones in this article. And it's hard to push them into an environment that requires social learning. Overcoming these challenges, some strategies. Simply put, this marginalized group can benefit from interactive and unique ways to learn online. They have even more to benefit from those who are not marginalized. They need the EdTech tools more than other students who have more advantages. They need to buy into these tools and strategies that their teachers are trying to implement. and that Monero talks about a lot. Another strategy is to find partners in courses, fellow students to work with and engage with. This will help adjustment to the tools by helping the socioeconomically challenged work with others. This will be the key benefit to impact social learning capabilities. 3 questions I have to consider for the class. 1, what level of Bloom's digital taxonomy will be key to consider in order for teachers to implement these EdTech tools successfully in the classroom? Number 2, in slide 8, I talked about some potential challenges that the socioeconomically challenged could face. What are some other drawbacks you could see coming to light with this implementation? Number 3, 2 unique EdTech tools that were referenced in the article were Nearpod and Flipgrid. What are 3 ways that these tools can benefit students? And ideally, choose ways that were not mentioned in the slides. In conclusion, this article provided a variety of strategies that I found very useful when considering ways to improve online learning, specifically participation in online classrooms. Tools like Nearpod, Flipgrid, Google Classroom, Zoom, Google Meet, many more can be helpful for student engagement by using forums, discussion boards, and video presentations. Socioeconomically challenged students need even more strategies to improve learning, especially online learning. This is because of the challenges they face outside of the classroom, which are going to affect them inside the classroom. And this group can benefit greatly from these strategies. Here are my references. I focused mostly on the article from Monero and the Edutopia article shown.